Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Daily Gwei Refuel, where I recap the latest news in the Ethereum ecosystem. I'm your host, Anthony Sassano, and today's the 14th of October, 2022. Alright everyone, let's get into it. So a little bit of drama on Twitter today around Ethereum staking. Now, this thread was put out by Mark here from the Rocket Pool community, and he starts this thread off by saying, holy shit, here's Lido on the topic of solo node operators, and he links to a YouTube video, and he quotes Vasily, who's one of the co-founders of Lido, as saying, and I quote, "We think that most of the stake should be managed by professional operators," end quote. And another quote, "Most solo operators are not rational, they do it for fun," end quote. Now, there are a bunch of other kind of things here that Mark put in his thread, but basically, when I first saw this, I didn't know that it was Vasily, who is, as I said, a co-founder of Lido. I thought maybe it was just one of the employees there who's not talking for the whole project, or not speaking for the whole project, obviously, or maybe a community member. But no, it was, to my surprise, it was Vasily, the co-founder, as I said. Now, why it was surprising was one, I mean, I wouldn't say it's like totally surprising, because I don't expect for-profit businesses not to be profit maximalists, right? Not to act in their best interest, because Lido is essentially a for-profit business, right? They're acting in their best interest. But what was surprising is that he was so, I guess, transparent about this, and the fact that Lido has said in the past that they are committed to decentralizing. And I've said, I think on the Refuel, I think I've said this. If I haven't, then I'm saying it now. I've said that in this industry, you don't really want to be trusting anyone's word on things, right? You want to wait and see what they actually do, and until they actually do what they say they're going to do, yeah, you don't really want to be trusting that, especially not around stuff like this. And the two quotes that he kind of said here really struck a chord with me as well, because saying that he thinks that most of the stake should be managed by professional operators, in my mind, is a very non-Ethereum centric view of proof of stake, because every other proof of stake chain that is not Ethereum runs in this model, right? They're DPoS chains, delegated proof of stake chains, where essentially they have a bunch of professional operators which where people can delegate their stake to, and it's not the same as kind of putting your ETH into a staking pool on Ethereum. It's literally just delegating your tokens to these entities, and it tends to centralize, and it tends to be just a handful of these entities basically running the whole chain. There are cartels that form. You know, DPoS is just not a great mechanism for blockchains, and we knew that back in the EOS days, to be honest. Like, the EOS showed us it wasn't great, so Ethereum basically said, we need to prioritize home staking. We need to prioritize solo staking. We need to make it so that home and solo stakers are able to get the same profits, or around the same profits, the same reward, I should say, from staking as professional operators can. And that's where the second quote comes in, where Vasily said, most solo operators are not rational. They do it for fun. And this is silly, because I think that he's basing this comment on the fact that professional operators can out-earn solo operators, but this is not actually true at all. And Buddha here from the Beacon Chain website put out a tweet saying Rocket Pool validators actually perform pretty much as good as Lido validators based on this formula that they used here. So home stakers can compete with institutions, and they can. I mean, as a solo staker, you can basically do the same stuff that a professional operator does, and you have the ability to do that as well. Obviously, you need 32 ETH if you want to be a solo staker, like a full solo staker, or you need 16 ETH with Rocket Pool right now, but they're going to lessen that to 8 ETH. And in the future, hopefully, we have other solutions out there that allow this barrier to come down even more. Because as I've said before, the biggest barrier to entry is obviously that ETH stake. But if you have that, you can stake on your own. You can solo stake or stake with a decentralized provider like Rocket Pool, and you're able to compete with the big boys, which is the whole point of designing Ethereum proof of stake in the way that we've designed it. So we didn't have to just capitulate to the DPoS mechanism and basically let that take over, when we obviously don't want that to be the case there. So yeah, as I said, like, when it comes to Lido, and when it comes to centralized staking operators, they definitely are profit maximalists, right? They want to maximize the profit that they generate because they're for-profit businesses. And I've said before that Lido is a service that distributes the stake out to, I think it's 29 staking service providers. Well, these providers are not doing this out of an altruistic endeavor, right? These providers are doing this in order to earn a profit. And of course, the more ETH that goes through Lido, the more ETH goes into these providers. So they're incentivized to promote Lido as well. So it's all a for-profit thing. Now, I'm not saying that solo stakers or home stakers are altruistic either. I mean, they're certainly, they're like, most of them probably wouldn't be, right? But they are doing it for both profit, but also for the health of the network, because we know that solo stakers contribute the most to the health of the Ethereum beacon chain. And I actually said this in my tweet here, where I said home stakers are the beating heart of Ethereum, and they really are, right? They are literally the last line of defense. As Patrick McCrory replied to my tweet here by saying, given the nature of OFAC sanctions due to MEV boost, we are now relying on the solo stakers, at least one honest party, to enforce censorship resistance and include all fee-paying transactions. It is our job as a community to uphold decentralization and protect home stakers. I couldn't have said it better myself. As I just said, home stakers are that last line of defense. Solo stakers are incredibly hard to identify, incredibly hard to coerce. A lot of them actually do care about the health of Ethereum, will prioritize that over profits to an extent, right? Whereas these other companies may not, because they have conflicts of interest. A lot of them, because a lot of them don't just validate on Ethereum, aren't just running validators on Ethereum. They're running validators on many different chains, and to them, it's kind of like what it was to miners, where it was just a pure for-profit endeavor. But for solo stakers, it takes on a lot of other things as well. Now, speaking of staking, you can go give this thread from Mark a read. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. There's a few other comments here and some replies here. But speaking of staking, wanted to give a quick update on what the staking distribution looks like. Obviously, it can't change that much because withdrawals aren't enabled. So Lido has around 30% of the market share still. They peaked at about, I think, 34%, but their share went down because ETH went into other staking service providers, because I think mostly because the ST-ETH, quote-unquote depeg, but also people started being more loud about how Lido's share of the network was too great, and people were like, okay, well, instead of going with Lido, I'll go with someone else, right? I'll go with another provider, for example, but that's not going to change much until withdrawals are enabled. We know this. It's just basically impossible for it to change very much because people can't withdraw from these providers, not just Lido, but other ones, and can't change who they're staking with. I mean, with Lido, people can, and other providers that give you an LSD, you can exit, like you can sell your ST-ETH, right, for ETH and then go stake somewhere else, but that doesn't actually exit the stake from the Lido service because there's no withdrawals from the beacon chain, so all you're doing is passing that ST-ETH onto someone else or onto the open market, but that ETH still sits in the beacon chain and it won't get withdrawn, obviously, until staking withdrawals are enabled. So this dashboard from Hilldob is great. I love this dashboard. You can check this out. I'll link it in the YouTube description below, but this tracks a lot of that stuff. And there's also this rated.network website, which I've covered before, which shows the percentage of network penetration of different services out there. As I said, Lido is around 30%. Coinbase is at 12.2%. Kraken, Binance, Staked US, Bitcoin Suisse, all between 2 and 8.5% here. And Rocket Pool is up to 2% almost. So they're growing very nicely. And this is what I wanted to highlight here. All the rest of these services are centralized right now, pretty much all of them. I'm just going through the list right now. Yeah, they're all centralized except for Rocket Pool. So we want to be cheering for the decentralized services more than the centralized ones, especially because the centralized ones already take up a pretty hefty part of the network. But it's great to see that Rocket Pool is growing. I mean, it's almost 2%. I'm pretty sure, it was full the other day, the ETH pool in Rocket Pool. There was 5,000 ETH in there. I think that was the max that can be in there. Not sure if it's still full today, but if you're thinking about spinning up a Rocket Pool mini pool and you have that 16 ETH, you should definitely do so. And you want to stake, obviously, you should definitely do so. But yeah, as I said, I think we should be cheering for the decentralized services more than the centralized ones. The centralized ones already have a huge market share. I've said before that I don't think any service, if we can get to the point where none of these centralized services, or maybe no service in general, has more than 10% network penetration, I think that'd be really, really awesome. Right now, there is 2 that has more than 10%, obviously Lido and Coinbase here. I've said before that Lido isn't a monolithic entity, but it still adds that centralization vector there because the ST-ETH token is tied to Lido, and that's basically tied to all of the underlying stake anyway that's run through Lido. So there is that very centralized connection there, regardless of how many operators there are, right? And I don't want to shit on Lido too much here. I mean, I've actually defended them a lot in the past, but if their co-founders on record saying these sorts of stuff, well, my benefit of the doubt is pretty much gone out the window, right? The funny thing is here, I should disclose this. I actually own both RPL and LDO tokens. I participated in the Lido treasury diversification round quite a while ago, and you guys know I own the RPL tokens, but my LDO
tokens are a very small part of my portfolio as well. I think it's smaller than my RPL, at least right now, because they're vesting, obviously. But it doesn't matter about what my investments are. If I think something is unhealthy or bad for the Ethereum network, well, then I'm going to call it out as that, right? So I think that we're working towards obviously getting the staking as distributed as possible. The two things that I've talked about in the past has been enabling withdrawals, which obviously is going to be huge, and also just having more competition in the staking arena, which is coming, guys. Like, it's coming. I mean, it's not going to come all at once. It's going to be done over time, and once withdrawals are enabled, it's just going to supercharge things. So until those things happen, we probably won't see the numbers change too much here in terms of network penetration, because the only way they can change is if someone goes with, if stakers go with another service. But it's still good to see decentralized services like Rocket Pool continuing to grow. Like, as I said, I don't even if it's decentralized, I don't think that any one service should have over 10% network penetration on the network. It's not healthy for other reasons, not just because it's centralized or decentralized, but also because it adds extra risks. Like if there's a bug in that protocol or whatever, right? It can add different types of risk on top of these things. And generally, we want to promote diversity and as distributed a stake as possible on the Bitcoin chain. But those are my thoughts on that. I know there are a fair few people from the Rocket Pool community that watch the refuel. Hopefully, that you guys share my thoughts there on that one. But yeah, if anyone's from Lido is listening, I'm not trying to shit on Lido here, but at the end of the day, I think it's good to see, or at least put out the signal that, hey, if you want to be transparent about this, as Vasily was here, and say these sorts of things, well, then you have to expect community pushback, because the Ethereum community does not believe that most of the stake should be managed by professional operators, and they also do not believe that solo stakers are not rational. Solo stakers are very rational. They are the last line of defense, and they are the beating heart of Ethereum. So yeah, anyway, moving on from that one to the next update from today. So there was an update here that, what is this? What team is this part of? I think it's part of the Kevlar team here. So, or at least, what is this? Sorry, I should have seen this before. But oh no, this Kevlar is the actual name of the tool here. So there was a tool released, something called Kevlar, which is a tool that makes Metamask or any RPC-based wallet completely trustless. Kevlar first runs a light client to quickly sync with the beacon chain, and then starts a local RPC proxy that you can add to your wallet. And there's a thread here with more information on this. This is another implementation of that light client stuff that I spoke about, I think yesterday or the day before, how Nimbus had an implementation out there. Well, this is, I believe, a separate one. As I said, it's called Kevlar, and it's on GitHub here. It's open source, I believe, so you can check that all out if you're a developer, want to read the code or anything like that. But this is cool. This is the future of the industry. This is where it's going. As I discussed the other day, light clients get us to that point where basically we don't need to have users running full nodes to be able to relay their own transactions and have security guarantees around that from their MetaMask or from another wallet, for example. They can use their own light client on their mobile phone. They can even do it from their mobile phone in order to relay their transactions in a trustless way, where they don't have to trust that the node that they're talking to is actually the correct one. They can verify that themselves using the light client, which is obviously very, very powerful. And obviously, we don't want that centralization around RPCs to continue. But I did mention the other day that Infura is planning to decentralize their RPC, which is very cool. But still, I mean, it remains to be seen how decentralized that can become, because running nodes, I mean, you don't get paid to do that, right? Like, Infura has been a free service and continues to be a free service for people that use it. I mean, and a lot of MetaMask users use Infura, and I wonder what the economics of that look like once Infura tries to decentralize. Maybe there's going to be a token involved. I'm not sure there. But regardless, the end state, what we're working towards, is light clients. So yeah, go check out Kevlar. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Consensys' R&D department has announced a release of their updated and extended EVM equivalent zk-EVM specification to the Ethereum community. So you can go check this out on this blog post here. It's funny because the zk-EVM stuff, it seems like over the last few months, it's just absolutely exploded. Like, it seems like everyone has a zk-EVM now. Well, this is just I believe, a spec. I don't believe this is something, or a design, at least, spec design. I don't think this is an actual app or an actual zk-EVM that's been developed just yet. But this design, the goals of this design, as Consensys states it here, is execution of an unaltered native bytecode in accordance with the Ethereum VM specification as specified in the yellow paper, 100% coverage of the different opcodes uploads and delivery of a Type 2 zk-EVM as defined by Vitalik. So I spoke about this the other day on Vitalik. Hasn't been linked correctly here, but I spoke about this the other day that there are, I think, 3 types of zk-EVMs, and there was a Type 1 zk-EVM, which is what Tyco is developing, which is basically full Ethereum equivalence. Then there is a Type 2 zk-EVM, which is Ethereum compatibility. So basically getting to the point where you have 100% coverage of the different opcodes, but there are still some differences under the hood there, and there are pros and cons to each of these approaches, but as I said the other day, it's good that we have all of the approaches being tried, like Type 1, Type 2, Type 3. I don't remember if there's a Type 4 or not, but if there is, I'm sure someone's attempting it. Because at the end of the day, like, we shouldn't all just centralize around one, right? And there are different ways of doing things, just like how Arbitrum's optimistic rollup is different to Optimism's optimistic rollup, right? So the same is going to be true of zk-EVMs. They're not all going to be the same thing. They're going to be different. They're going to have different implementations. They're going to have different sets of training wheels on them, different ways developers can build on them, right? But I guess like the main goal of all of them is to be EVM compatible, just to make it really easy for developers to develop on them, port their apps over, and get the benefits of zk technology. So you can go check out this Consensys blog post. I'll link it in the YouTube description below. All right, so Uniswap Labs has announced a new funding round here. So they've raised $165 million in Series B funding to bring the powerful simplicity of Uniswap to even more people across the world. Now, this is not a token raise. This is an equity raise. So it means that the investors who are listed here, it was led by Polychain Capital with participation from A16Z, Paradigm, SV, and Variant Fund here. I think SV is, SV Angel and Variant Fund here. This is for equity. I think the valuation of the equity is 1.6 billion, whereas the token valuation is what, 5 billion fully diluted right now. And obviously, having equity has a claim on tokens that was allocated to the investors, but we don't have much more details on the raise here. And it did bring up a lot of questions about, what's the point of the Uni token if investors are just buying equity and then the labs or Uniswap Labs is incentivized to increase the value of equity and not increase the value of the token. And also the value of the token being increased or driving value to the token could make it look like a security. And obviously they don't want to run afoul of securities regulations. Like, there's a lot of questions around this. And then Hayden put out a little tweet kind of announcing this as well and saying, there's lots coming down the Uniswap pipeline. We already figure that Uniswap V4 is coming, but I'm curious to know what else they've got in the pipeline. There's been talk of Unichain, which could be a sovereign app chain or it could be a roll-up chain. I don't know what the point of Unichain would be, to be honest. Like, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Maybe they will actually do something interesting, but the power of Uniswap is in its composability, like having Uniswap everywhere on every chain and then being able to compose with that with all the other apps on that chain. So realistically, what would happen is that Unichain would end up just being its own ecosystem, right? It would look more like an Optimism or an Arbitrum rather than an app chain, because the strength of Uniswap is that composability, composability across many different apps, across many different tokens. But maybe they can make it work. Maybe they're building a bridging infrastructure that allows them to do cross roll-up composability, right? In an in a synchronous way. I don't know. We'll have to see. Uniswap's always pretty tight-lipped about their new releases until they actually come out. But as I said, Uniswap V4 is pretty much guaranteed. Not sure what that's going to look like either. I think, they came out with V3 with concentrated liquidity, which is a very, very good feature, a very nice feature that a lot of people are getting a lot of value out of. And I hope they surprise us with V4. But yeah, Unichain, I would give it, I don't know about a percentage chance, but I would give it a likely chance of happening. So it's kind of hard, right? Because I go back and forth with the pros and cons of Unichain. I can see some points where it makes sense and some others where it doesn't. If they literally just do it for the sake of increasing the value of the token, because maybe they use the token as some kind of, sequencer token or fee token, something weird, right? Maybe that works, maybe it doesn't. I don't think it would work. But in terms of chance of it happening, I don't know. Maybe likely is the wrong terminology. Maybe I should do it's a coin toss. Maybe it's a 50-50 chance at this point that it happens. I haven't heard anything about it happening. There has obviously been people talking about it other than me, but generally we're just going to have to wait and see, obviously. But the fundraise itself, I guess, congrats to them on this. And it's not hard for Uniswap to raise money, that's for sure. Uniswap is the most popular app in crypto. I don't think there's anything else as popular as Uniswap. I think OpenSea may have eclipsed it for a little bit. But obviously, NFT volumes have come down substantially. OpenSea is still a big deal, but I believe Uniswap is definitely bigger than OpenSea, just generally here. But yeah, as I said, like a bit of talk about the fundraise itself too, and like the fact that it's in equity and not in tokens. You know, what does this mean for the token value? I don't have answers to this. I have the same questions as everyone else, but the cynic in me thinks that until there's actually any type of regulatory clarity around tokens, I don't really believe that any real value is going to be driven to the Uni token, which is sad because the Uni token, I think, could be quite powerful as a pseudo equity token in the Uniswap protocol if only they would enable that fee switch, right? That fee take. But they're scared of doing that for a number of reasons, not just the regulatory reasons, but also scared of losing liquidity. So if you turn it on, you obviously take 0.05% for an example, or 5 bips. You take that from liquidity providers and give it to token holders, and then token holders will stake. And does it actually drive long-term value to Uni? Like, who knows, right? But we'll have to see. We'll have to see how it shakes out over the next few months. All right, so speaking of Uniswap, Uniswap V3 is getting deployed onto StarkNet. So, and I believe zk-Sync as well. I forgot to get the tweet up here, but I'm pretty sure I saw it's getting deployed to zk-Sync as well. So, as I said, I believe Uniswap should be basically everywhere, and then it'll get as much activity as as it gets on each chain that it's on. Maybe it gets nothing. Like I went over the other day that on the Sassal or Challo chain, which is another layer 1, it basically has no volume, but on Optimism, Arbitrum, and the Polygon POS chain, it has lots of volume. And I believe on StarkNet and zk-Sync and Scroll and Polygon zk-EVMs, they'll probably get like a ton of volume there as well. So yeah, as I said, I want to see Uniswap everywhere. Great to see that it's getting quote unquote warped onto StarkNet. As you guys know, because StarkNet is not Solidity based, it is Cairo based. You need to run this piece of software which is called Warp from Nethermind in order to transpile the code into Cairo so that Uniswap could run natively on StarkNet, which would be very cool to see because that's different to what we've seen. The Uniswap deployments on other chains are all on EVM compatible chains or EVM equivalent chains. This is a totally different thing altogether. So very awesome to see that there. All right, last up here is a discussion about some drama that's been going on over the past couple of days at DevCon. So to give some context here, there was a picture posted to Twitter by a person from Blu3 DAO, which is some kind of inclusivity DAO or something like that. I didn't even know about them until today. Actually, there's their Twitter profile here. I can just read out their bio. So they're a DAO focused on empowering women, non-binary people, and allies to learn, earn, and play in Web3 towards financial freedom. That's basically what they build themselves as. But the context here is that picture got posted, and there was 2 people in the picture actually. One of them was not relevant, and one of them was had a brown backpack on, so he became known as Brown Backpack Guy. But the picture was posted with the caption that the person in the photo was harassing this woman, right? And then she didn't specify which person it was, so of course the other person in the photo got got hounded about this as well. But then it was later clarified that it was the person with the brown backpack she was talking about, and he had a really shit time. He came out today on Twitter and basically put out a tweet with not a tweet with a link to a description of actually what happened, and there was no harassment that happened at all. It was basically, the TLDR was that he was taking photos, and apparently this woman and her friends didn't want their photo taken or something like that, or told the guy to basically piss off, and they were being really rude to him, so he gave him a thumbs down, and obviously that triggered them, or that got them upset, and then they spent the next, I guess, couple of days harassing this poor guy. And I put out a tweet where I said, I'm pretty upset about this whole Blu3 DAO brown backpack guy thing. First, they accuse an innocent guy of harassment, and then they themselves proceed to harass him for no reason. These people are a special kind of evil, and I hope they are not welcomed at future Ethereum events. I actually hope they are banned from all future Ethereum events. Like, this sort of shit can ruin people's lives, and it ruined this guy's life for the past few days because he had to deal with everyone thinking that he actually, harassed this person, right? And then the DevCon organizers were told about this as well by these people, and then they went up to him and they searched his phone, and then he went to a club or a party. I think he went to Rave, and then the the same people told the security guards about him, and then he got kicked out because of that. Like, this is just really not on, guys. This is not what Ethereum is about. This is not what should be considered normal and should be considered acceptable from any type of community or from just like in general, right? Like, I hate this sort of stuff. Whenever I hear these stories, I think this could happen to anyone. And why are people just believing someone because they said something, right? Because they take a photo and put it on Twitter and said something. If something actually happened, actually really happened, there should be proof of it, and they shouldn't be plastering it all over social media trying to cancel this person. And what made it even worse is that after the guy explained what had happened, right, it just seemed like it was blown. It was even worse than at face value. And look, okay, I get what you're probably thinking. Well, why do you believe what the guy said instead of what the woman said? Well, because the guy's story seems a lot more plausible than the woman's one does, because she offered no proof, nothing. All she literally said, from what I've seen at least, is that he harassed her and some people, right? And what makes me believe him over her as well is that Blu3 DAO, the DAO itself, actually turns out to be a grift. So there was a thread that I don't have handy right now, but there was a thread that put out by someone basically saying that Blu3 DAO grifted $1 million from Harmony Protocol as a grant, I believe, based on basically lies. And then you can see another thread here, another tweet here from someone called IC saying, doing my due diligence and going through Blu3 DAO engineering work to see how their inclusivity is working out, and their most promising piece of software is a shell script designed to inflate the activity on your GitHub profile by spoofing commits. Sounds promising for their liquidity. So it's just an all-round grift, Blu3 DAO. It seems like these people are using the mask of inclusivity, of being, for empowering women and all that sorts of stuff in order to take money from DAOs or to just get money or to get invited to things. I mean, I'm sure they got a special DevCon ticket, probably because they were part of Blu3 DAO, and it was part of an inclusivity thing that DevCon was doing, which is all well and good, right? There are legit organizations that do that sort of stuff, but this one is not one of them. And that's why, I mean, this is a major reason why I straight away believe what the guy said, but also it's also because the woman who accused him of harassment didn't go into any detail about this, and also just made his life an absolute living hell from what I read on his post there. So the reason I bring this up is, one, because this is not on and we should be calling it out every chance that we get, and two, about the Blu3 DAO itself and about how they're a grift. Guys, like, there are so many grifters in this space. It's actually insane. There are so many scammers. You've seen so many of them come and go over the years. Even if you've only been in crypto for a couple of years, you've already seen your fair share of them. I mean, we saw one of the biggest grifters ever with Do Kwon, right? Like, they're everywhere. And they may look like they're innocent. They may look like they're trying to do something good, but a lot of the time, that's actually the ones that people least suspect, and the ones that are actually doing stuff that is grifting, right? And I wouldn't call it outright scamming. There's a pretty big difference between grifting and scamming. But at the same time, I think that the lines are blurred there with those sorts of things a lot of the time as well. But there's so many of those people. So please be vigilant about these sorts of things. Please don't just trust someone who says something like this. Accusing someone of harassment, especially sexual harassment, which is just a complete lie, is extremely serious. This isn't just a crypto thing. In real life, people get accused of this sort of stuff all the time. It can destroy someone's life, because of what happens is, a lot of the time, especially if it's a woman accusing a guy of something, because obviously there is a lot of real instances of sexual harassment happening, automatically a lot of people will believe the woman and say, okay, well, you must have done this, right? And then without any proof, without anything, this person is already guilty in the eyes of a lot of people. And then even if he's able to get his name cleared, or I mean, it happens the other way around as well. Even if they're able to get their name cleared, right, there are still people that kind of believe that. And there are still people, and your reputation ends up getting torched, and you end up with this stigma over you. And it sucks. It absolutely fucking sucks. Like, I haven't gone through it myself, but I've known people that have, and it is one of the worst things that can happen to a person in my eyes, right? Because it's basically like getting cancelled, but worse. I mean, you can get cancelled and come back from it for other things, but when it comes to especially sexual harassment, that just seems to be a very very big touchy thing for people. No pun intended there, but you know what I mean, right? There's my Aussie humor at it again, but yeah, you know what I'm saying here. So I just wanted to point that out, but I also wanted to warn as well that just be vigilant around grifts and scams, guys. They're always out there. They're always trying to take your money. They're always trying to play nice with you to get your money. Just got to be more vigilant about that. But on that note, I'm going to end it there for today. So thank you everyone for listening and watching. Be sure to subscribe to the channel if you haven't yet. Give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the newsletter, join the Discord channel, and I'll catch you all next week. Thanks, everyone.